My name is Dean McIntosh. In a little over a month I will be 38 years old and I am autistic. I suffer from PTSD, so the reason I'm panting and heaving and wobbling all over the place like I'm hypoglycemic is, PTSD. I'll try to ride that horse throughout this video, but if I start screaming at the camera or throwing things, it has nothing to do with the fact that I am autistic. It has everything to do with the PTSD. I hate ad-libbing. Now, from time to time during this video, you might see me turning and looking at the computer screen behind me. This is for a reason. In this video, I wish to address Mr. Hugo Weaving and the people who helped him make the video that I'm complaining about. I've compiled a few general notes about why I'm complaining onto the screen, and if I turn and look at the screen, that's because I need the prompts to keep this speech level and coherent. So I'm not a professional actor. I did take some very low-grade school classes in drama and so on and so forth, but pardon me, as a rule of thumb, I've found in life that I tend to work best behind the camera or behind the keyboard rather than in front of the camera. Mr. Weaving, I have tried to watch your so-called autism awareness video. I've frame by framed through it, skipping several seconds at a time, because I want to tell you right now that your video is offensive. And I'm going to go through a few reasons why your video is offensive, not just to me, but to any politically conscious autistic adult who understands the politics of disability or the politics associated with autism. Essentially, your video is exactly what we don't need in terms of speaking over the top of us. And that brings me to my first complaint about your video. In the course of your video, I haven't counted exactly, but you say literally hundreds, possibly even thousands, maybe 1,200, maybe 1,100, over 1,000 words concerning autism, and in particular one autistic individual who sits in this video with you. Kai says at most 16 words in your video. 16 words, and you're sitting there blah 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 blahing over the top of him. This is not on. Why is it not on? Well, as you can see from this video, there are literally millions of autistic people in the world. Even if you use the real statistic, that is 1 in 150 people, that's 0.75%. I would like to humbly apologise for getting my sums wrong when describing the amount of autistic people there are in the world. We now return you to your, well, whatever the hell this is anyway. There are 55.5 roughly million autistic people in the world. That's more than twice the population of Australia, in case you're keeping count, Mr. Weaving. Surely, out of that 55 and change million people, you can find 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 or 5 people who can stand in front of the camera and articulate what autistic people really want out of people like your good self. Now, I understand that creating the family connection, using a family-related tale, etc., makes it seem more personal. Unfortunately, what it has the effect of doing is basically taking the words, you're basically sewing autistic people's mouths shut and essentially depriving us of a voice in our own lives. I've been told, I don't know how true this is, I don't expect you to respond directly to what I have to say, I'm not even sure you're ever going to see this video, but I've been told that you, Mr. Weaving, have suffered from epilepsy, that you were diagnosed with epilepsy early on in your life and had to struggle with it to reach the very successful and quite frankly privileged state of living you exist in now. What this means, Mr. Weaving, is that you would have to have lived in a vacuum or a bubble in order to have not heard the expression, nothing about us without us. Now, in that spirit, nothing about us without us, it is very difficult to believe that you spoke to any autistic people during the making of this video. And if you did speak to any autistic people in this during the production of this video, those autistic people have been essentially what I call autistic Uncle Toms. That is, they are the autistic equivalent of what black Americans refer to as Uncle Tom. I could expend all my breath on what autistic Uncle Tom means, especially to me. I'll just executive summary it to say that an autistic Uncle Tom essentially tells the QABs what they want to hear, and based on my experiences that have led me to be, during the past 6 months, literally jumping up and down and screaming for a proper PTSD assessment, essentially, the kind of people who approve of your video are they're not going to be liked by autistic people, is what I'm getting at, Mr. Weaving. We look at them the same way black militants such as the Black Panthers et al. Look at Bill Cosby. Make of that what you will. Anywho, I seem to have expended more words on one point than I was meaning to, but as you can see, I'm autistic. I have very serious emotional difficulties and I get carried away. Haha. Even if you let Kai talk during this video, and by talk I mean saying more than 16 words, even if you had let him speak for himself, or let autistic people speak for themselves. And again, this feeds into the PTSD thing. It is extremely offensive to call us people with autism. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life story so that you can understand exactly why people with autism is offensive. Now, I've only known that I'm autistic for, we'll take a stab in the dark and say 14 years. That's fairly close to where I'm at. But during the past 24 months, I've suffered multiple blood clots in this here left leg that extended literally from my groin right down to the middle of my calf. I was in terrible pain during those clots. I spent, I don't know, maybe a year on warfarin. I was on anticoagulants, and you know, if I hadn't been obese at the time, I probably could have gone through life without ever knowing that I had the factor V Leiden gene. Now, the reason that I'm obese is because I've had diabetes for now just over 28 years. And one thing that having diabetes for this long has done to my autistic brain and my autistic experience of life is that I feel an overwhelming and extremely powerful need to be in control of my blood sugar level. This means that I will inject insulin as if it's water. And unfortunately, stupid diet choices, stupid lifestyle habits, stupid decisions with many aspects of my life have led to the point where I'm now 134 kilos. The last time I was at a comfortable body weight, I was 100 kilos. The last time I was at a body weight where I felt genuinely fit, I was about 90, 95 kilos. The reason I've just shared all this information with you about my having diabetes for so long, the factor V Leiden gene, etc., is because when you say people with autism, what you're communicating to me is that you think of the way my neurons, my brain cells, etc. are shaped as if it's in the same category with diabetes. That is, you're thinking of my brain, the way my brain's shaped, etc., etc., as if it's a separate thing to me, as if it's something that has climbed into me, latched on, become a parasite or similar. And I'm here to tell you that if you genuinely think of my brain the way I think of the diabetes, then I really have nothing further to say to you, Mr. Weaving. It is spectacularly offensive to think of autism as if it's a separate thing to the autistic person. Such thinking is the sole basis of cureby organisations such as Autism Speaks for Normie Arseholes being allowed to exist. If you take away people's ability to think of autism as a separate thing to autistic people, then QAB organisations cannot continue to exist. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. I hope I'm very willing to go into further detail with you about this, but that's essentially the bottom line. Autism is not a separate thing to me, and you are being offensive by speaking of it as if it is. Moving right along. Mr. Weaving, like I said, your current position in society and the state of the world essentially is a privileged one. I don't know how aware you are of, what families are really like, or what people in the community are really like, but my family essentially held me prisoner in a place in Queensland where there are no services, there are no resources for autistic adults, there is nothing. They kept me there for so many years that I went in there looking, feeling young, and I came out in this shape. Give me a gun with 2 bullets in it. Put Mussolini, Hitler, and my male parent in front of me. I will shoot my male parent twice in the testicles. In order to improve the situation for autistic people, you have to change society's attitude towards autistic people, and you have to change the fact that people are being asked to rely on their families. I wouldn't trust my familial unit, and that includes my mother, which, my mother I'm still actually on speaking terms with. I would not trust her to sit the right way on a toilet seat. This really is very difficult for me, Mr. Weaving. Before I get to the final point, I'll just quickly have an aside. I like some of your work, Mr. Weaving. Your performance in... I don't like Peter Jackass. Okay, let's throw that card on the table right now. He is an ego with arms and legs, and quite frankly, if someone told me you can have $1 gazillion and let Peter Jackass adapt your work into film, or you can have $1 and have Paul Verhoeven adapt your work into film, I would pick Paul Verhoeven. Da 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 da. I lost track of time. I am aware that the camera I'm recording this on, the Nikon D5200, sets a 20-minute limit on how long you can record live action footage for. I wasn't aware that the time was ticking down that quickly. And of course the interruption made me lose my place. Now, Mr. Weaving, I've mentioned a concept called Niro'ing yourself. I've told you that your video is bad and why. Now, Dr. Tony Attwood has said to my face, you know, when you complain to people, particularly in government, it's generally an idea to give the people you're complaining to an idea of how to remedy the situation. Which is why I brought up the concept of De Niro'ing yourself and how I've described it and all that. I want to explain to you now how you can un-De Niro yourself. Are you ready? Good. Now, this is where you need to get out a notepad and make some notes. Now, you might be thinking that there are no autistic people in the entertainment industry. You might be thinking, you know, autistic people are, no, I don't cross them in work or whatever, but that's not true. Given that 0.75% of the world's human population is autistic, it's extremely unlikely that you have not worked on a film where there has been at least one autistic person where no autistic people have been involved. Belch, belch, brain fart, belch, belch, belch. Belch, belch, brain fart, belch, belch, belch. I can't do math, okay? That's my autistic thing. I'm writing novels non-stop, well, sort of non-stop. I was literate at what you jokers call a university level when I was 3 years old, but I can't do math to save my life, so bear with me here. Belch, belch, brain fart, belch, belch, belch. Belch, belch, brain fart, belch, belch, belch. You don't, you don't have the foggiest idea how many people you might be face to face with that you've hurt. As I've complained in the speech prior, you talk constantly and only let Kai say about 16 words total for himself. In order to rectify De Niro'ing yourself, you have to reverse this. I'm available anytime you please. Get me up in front of the camera, say, this is Dean, he's autistic, he wants to tell you a few things, Dean, go. And don't say a single word whilst I speak continuously for, well, I've spoken for 20 minutes plus already. I have a lot to say, Mr. Weaving, but those ignorami out there in zombie land are basically squelching me. Give me a voice that has a reach like yours. That's one step in the process of un-De Niro'ing yourself. Take that as you will. I'm sure there's an autistic student actor out there who can probably do it a lot better than I can. In which case, if you find them, hell, put them in front of the camera. I'm only suggesting myself because I'm willing to come out and do it. Another way you can un-De Niro yourself is to get on the phone, ring up a literary agent and say to them, hey, this guy Dean McIntosh has a total of 4 completed manuscripts that are ready for final stage editing. He's got pipeline ideas and sketches for 3 or 4 other books. he has this property that he can commercially exploit. It would be a bit like a grown-up version of a Disney property. Instead of Mickey, Donald, Pluto, etc., etc., you'd have Truor, Manwë, Freya, and so forth. And yes, Truor is a dwarf. Not a Peter Jackass dwarf, a dwarf. As in the kind that, you know, would belt you in the bollocks again and again for making videos like the one I'm complaining about. Just something to bear in mind. I also have ambitions to work in photography, or there's a lot of energy, both creatively and ideas wise, that I have that is just basically going nowhere, Mr. Weaving. Part of a not essential process of under-Niro'ing yourself is getting the right people and saying, hey, look, let's do something with this font of rage and creative energy. Now, having said all of that, and both things of what I've said, putting someone in front of the camera, getting the wheels turning on publishing and commercial exploitation, etc. You could do that with any autistic person. The reason I'm suggesting myself is because my creative work could absolutely and utterly change the way autism is talked about in popular media, especially my novel, The Raven, and especially both my novels, The Raven and the Ruby, and Geifel-Strager. A Geifel-Strager is a type of mage that can basically manipulate other people's emotions and make other people hurt themselves based on emotional energy and so forth. It's a very radical concept, and really I can't think of the closest character currently in popular media that comes within. I can't hold my arms out far enough to express how far away she is. She's 0.001% of the idea I'm talking about. This Scarlet Witch character in the Avengers films is, think about her, except a lot nastier, basically. Okay, now that I've said my piece about all the ideas I have and want to get out there, and what you could essentially earn some autistic cred by getting on the phone and making that happen, I'm going to talk about the single most essential step in under-Niro'ing yourself, and this is the one you really should be paying attention to. You need to publicly apologise to all autistic people, whether it's Kai specifically or myself. Autistic people, full stop, deserve an apology for the video that you and all those people in the credits have made. Your apology would basically consist of you saying, I'm Hugo Weaving, I made this video, I've since learned that this video is very wrong, and these are the reasons why. You need to elaborate on why you're apologising to autistic people. You need to explain much of what I've complained about. In your own words, I don't, but it's especially important that you belch, belch, brain fart, belch, 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 brain fart, belch, belch, belch. I hate Australia. Mr. Weaving. I hate it right down into my very bones. And part of a tiny, tiny sliver of the reason why is a certain law called Helping Children with Autism. Apart from the fact that it legitimizes the idea that all autistic people are children, I mean, look at me. But apart from that fact, it also legitimizes the idea that it is okay to speak about autistic people's brains as if they are separate things to autistic people. I've already explained why this is not on. You need to explain in point form why you're apologising, and things like that have to be included. That's the final step I'm going to outline in how you un-Niro yourself, and it is by far the most important. There are other things you could do to advance the cause of autistic people. I'm contactable 24/7. You can, you could wake me up. You could knock on my door at 4 a.m. I don't care, as long as you're genuinely serious about contacting me and, making amends. Fine, I don't care. But that's the thing, Mr. Weaving. You can't un-Niro yourself without decisive and helpful to autistic people action, because this video you've made with Kai and all those people from organisations I've never heard of before, that is the polar opposite of helping autistic people. Thank you for your time, and I genuinely hope that if at the very least, you try to take what I've said on board, because Mr. Weaving, I'm deadly serious when I say after that video I will not pay a red cent to see anything with you in it. And if you continue down this path, you're going to end up in the same position that Robert De Niro is in. And I would kill Robert De Niro painfully if he appeared before me. Thank you very much. May Odin favour you. Bye.